It was just another busy day at the spaceport. Humans and aliens from all over the galaxy bustled through the crowded corridors, hurrying to catch flights, deliver cargo, or get to meetings. The sound of voices and footsteps echoed off the metal walls, and the air was filled with the smell of strange foods and the hum of machines. But among the hustle and bustle, one human stood out. Jack, a mechanic who worked at the spaceport. Jack wasn't a hero, or at least he didn't think so. He spent his days fixing broken parts and keeping the spaceport running smoothly. Most people didn't even notice him, but that was about to change. Jack was standing near one of the large ships wiping grease from his hands when he heard a loud crash. He looked up just in time to see a small, sleek alien transport ship crash into a cargo crate. The ship's landing gears failed and it skidded across the floor, narrowly missing several bystanders. Jack's heart raced. Without thinking, he dropped the rag and ran toward the wreckage. The ship's door was still open, and smoke was pouring out. Inside, a woman was trapped. Her breathing was shallow, and she looked badly hurt. She was an alien, a member of the Zorak species, tall and thin, with shimmering skin that changed color in the light. But it wasn't just any Zorak. She was the daughter of one of the most powerful alien bosses in the galaxy, Boss Argon. Jack didn't hesitate. He reached inside the wrecked ship, grabbing the woman and pulling her out as the flames grew. She was unconscious but still alive. He couldn't leave her there to burn. His heart pounded as he carried her to a nearby medical station. He yelled for help, but no one seemed to notice in the chaos. Jack wasn't trained as a medic, but he knew enough to keep her breathing. He placed her gently on a table and did his best to keep the smoke from filling her lungs. He did what he could, even though he didn't know if it would be enough. As the medics finally arrived, they rushed to take over. Jack stepped back, wiping the sweat from his brow, trying to catch his breath. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He had just saved the life of someone important, but now what? Would Boss Argon be grateful or angry? Within minutes, 2 large guards arrived. They were from Boss Argon's personal security detail. Their expressions were cold, and their weapons were drawn. "Where is she?" one of the guards barked. Jack pointed toward the medical area, his throat dry. "She's inside, getting treated." The guards exchanged a look and then walked toward the door. Jack had done his part, but now he felt a sense of dread growing in his chest. What would happen? Next, he was just a mechanic. He was just trying to help. But he had no idea what kind of trouble he had just stepped into. After a few tense moments, the guards came back. They didn't speak at first. Then one of them turned to Jack and said, "Boss Argon wants to see you, now." Jack's stomach dropped. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew it wasn't good. He had heard rumors about Boss Argon, rumors about how ruthless and powerful he was. Everyone feared him, even the most powerful aliens in the galaxy. And now, Jack was going to meet him. The thought made his knees go weak. The guards led him through the maze of hallways, past cargo bays, offices, and security checkpoints, until they reached an elevator. They didn't say anything as they entered, and Jack couldn't bring himself to speak. His mind raced. Why had Boss Argon sent for him? Was he angry that Jack had saved his daughter? Or was he grateful? The elevator doors opened to reveal a large office with windows that looked out over the spaceport. The room was dark, lit only by the soft glow of strange alien lights. Boss Argon stood by the window, staring out into the distance. He was tall, with dark, almost black skin and sharp features. His eyes glowed faintly, a dangerous red. "Leave us," he said to the guards without turning around. The guards hesitated, but then left the room, closing the door behind them. Jack was left alone with Boss Argon. The tension in the air was thick and Jack could barely breathe. "So," Boss Argon finally spoke, his voice low and commanding, "You saved my daughter." Jack nodded quickly. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble, sir. She was in danger and I had to help." Boss Argon turned to face him. "You're lucky. If you had not helped her, things would have gone differently." Jack swallowed hard. "I didn't know who she was. I just saw someone in trouble." Boss Argon studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It was a cold, calculating smile that sent a chill down Jack's spine. "You have guts," Boss Argan said. "Not many would risk their lives for someone like her. For that, I will allow you to live." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "Thank you, sir. I didn't do it for any reward. You will learn soon enough," Boss Argan interrupted. "You will be under my protection, and you will stay close to my daughter, whether you like it or not." Jack was taken aback. He had no idea what this meant, but he knew it wasn't a simple offer. Boss Argan's world was dangerous, and Jack had just stepped into it. "Understood," Jack said quietly, trying to hide his nervousness. Boss Argan nodded slowly. "Good. Now, get some rest. Tomorrow, you will start a new life, one you never asked for." Jack left the office with a heavy heart. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong as he made his way back to his small quarters in the spaceport. The words Boss Argan had spoken echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that his life had just taken a drastic turn. The man was powerful, too powerful, and now Jack was tangled in his world whether he wanted to be or not. The night had fallen, and the spaceport was quieter than usual. Jack sat on the edge of his bed, staring out the window into the vastness of space. Stars twinkled, distant and cold, as if mocking his sense of uncertainty. His mind raced, wondering what Boss Argan would want from him next. What did "under his protection" mean? Why had the alien boss chosen him? Suddenly, a knock at the door broke his thoughts. He stood up, his heart pounding as the door opened without waiting for a response. Two of Boss Argan's security guards stepped in. Their faces were stern and their hands rested on the handles of their weapons. They were there to escort him, no doubt about it. "Boss Argan requires your presence." "Now," one of them said, his tone emotionless. Jack swallowed hard, not wanting to argue. He followed them down the narrow corridors, the walls cold and metallic, the dim lighting giving the place an eerie feel. The guards didn't speak a word, their silence only adding to Jack's unease. As they reached the elevator, one of the guards stepped inside, motioning for Jack to follow. The elevator ride seemed to stretch on forever, each second dragging longer than the last. Jack couldn't help but wonder why he was being summoned again. What did the boss want now? Hadn't he made it clear that his life was spared? Was he about to be dragged into something far worse? The elevator doors opened to reveal a massive chamber, more of a throne room than an office. The walls were adorned with alien artwork, and strange symbols glowed in the dim light. The air was thick with the weight of power, as if the very room was designed to remind anyone who entered of Boss Argan's dominance. Jack's breath caught in his throat. Sitting at the far end of the room was Boss Argan himself, his dark figure seated on a large, intricately designed chair. He was gazing out at the starry expanse through a massive window, his back to Jack. The silence between them felt suffocating, and Jack could almost hear his own heartbeat in the stillness. "Step forward," Boss Argan's voice cut through, the quiet like a blade. It was calm, measured, but carried an unmistakable authority. Jack hesitated, then stepped forward, his nerves almost overwhelming him. The two guards stood silently at the door, their eyes watching Jack carefully. He took a deep breath and finally spoke, trying to keep his voice steady. "You wanted to see me, sir?" Boss Argan turned slowly in his chair, his piercing red eyes locking onto Jack. The cold smile that spread across his face didn't reassure Jack in the slightest. "Sit," he commanded. Jack's body tensed, but he obeyed, lowering himself into a chair across from Boss Argan. He felt the weight of the boss's gaze pressing down on him, making him feel small and insignificant. Yet Jack knew that whatever came next, he would have to keep his wits about him. "You have done something very dangerous, human," Boss Argan began, his voice cold, but not without an edge of curiosity. "Saving my daughter. You do not know the consequences of such an act." Jack's mind raced. He could feel the tension building. "I didn't mean to." I just acted. She was in trouble, and I couldn't leave her. Boss Argan's eyes glowed brighter, his expression unreadable. Your actions have made things complicated. You see, my daughter is not just any Zorak. She is crucial to my plans, and now because of you she has been exposed to a human, one who might very well be a threat. Jack's pulse quickened. A threat? I saved her life. Why would I be a threat to her? Boss Argan's smile faded, replaced by a stern, calculating look. You have no idea who you're dealing with. My enemies will see your involvement and use it against me. They will try to control you, twist your role in this, to bring me down. Do you understand? Jack nodded, though his mind was spinning. I didn't ask for any of this, he muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. You do not need to ask, Boss Argan replied, leaning forward slightly. But I am giving you an option. You will be a part of my world, whether you want to be or not, and you will help protect my daughter, whether she likes it or not. In return, I will ensure your safety. Jack's eyes widened. He was being offered a choice, but it didn't feel like one. It felt more like a demand. Or what? Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Boss Argan's gaze hardened, and for a moment, it felt like the room grew colder. If you refuse, I will make sure you never see the light of day again. There are many ways to deal with a problem like you, but I'd rather have you on my side. Jack felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. If he refused, he knew he wouldn't survive. But if he accepted, he'd be bound to a life he didn't want, a life that would never be simple again. What do you expect from me? Jack finally asked, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. Boss Argan's smile returned, but this time it was even colder. You will stay close to my daughter. You will guard her. You will make sure no one can use you against us. If you fail, I will make sure you regret it. But if you succeed, he paused, his eyes gleaming. You may find that you have a future in this galaxy after all. Jack swallowed hard, realizing just how deep he had stepped into something he couldn't escape from. His life was no longer his own. I understand, Jack said, his voice low. Good, Boss Argan said, standing up and walking toward the window once more. You will start tomorrow. Rest well, human, you have a lot of work ahead of you. As Jack turned to leave, the weight of the alien boss's words hung over him. He was caught in a game he didn't understand, and the only thing he knew for sure was that there was no turning back now. The days that followed were filled with tension. Jack could feel the eyes of the entire spaceport on him, whispering and watching, as rumors spread like wildfire. He had saved Boss Argan's daughter, and now he was a part of the boss's world, whether he liked it or not. His every move seemed to be under surveillance. The guards, always lurking, never left him alone for long. Jack's only solace was the quiet moments he spent in his small quarters. But even there, he couldn't escape the looming presence of the alien boss's power. Jack had never imagined his life would turn into something so dangerous, so unpredictable. But in this strange and unforgiving world, there was no room for doubt or hesitation. He had to keep his head down, follow the rules, and hope that somehow he could navigate his way out of this mess. One evening, as Jack finished a long day of maintenance work on the spaceport's outer walls, a familiar figure appeared. It was Alina, the daughter of Boss Argan. She looked different now, no longer the injured, fragile figure he had saved. Her shimmering skin glowed faintly under the artificial lights of the spaceport, and her posture was proud, almost regal. Alina walked toward him, her expression unreadable. She wasn't smiling, but there was something in her eyes, something Jack couldn't quite place. Jack, she said, her voice steady but with a hint of something else in it. I need to talk to you. Jack raised an eyebrow, feeling the tension between them. He had been ordered to stay close to her to protect her, but that didn't mean he was comfortable with the idea of being her constant shadow. It felt wrong, like he was an intruder in a world he didn't belong in. But now, seeing her stand before him, he couldn't ignore the strange pull in his chest. He had saved her life, but it was clear that their relationship was far from simple. Of course, Jack replied, trying to sound calm. What do you want to talk about? Alina didn't answer right away. Instead, she motioned for him to follow her, leading him to a small, secluded area near the docking bay. It was quieter here, far from the prying eyes of the guards and the bustling workers. Jack hesitated but followed her. Something in her tone made him curious. "Jack, I want to explain something to you," Alina began, her voice low. "My father, he's not just a businessman. He's involved in things that go far beyond the normal politics of the galaxy." Jack listened intently, his curiosity piqued. He had already guessed that Boss Argan wasn't just a simple businessman, but hearing it from Alina's lips made it more real, more dangerous. "What are you talking about?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Alina glanced around, ensuring no one was nearby. She then stepped closer, lowering her voice even further. "My father is involved in a war, one that has been raging for centuries. It's not just a war of armies or politics. It's a war for control over the galaxy, over the very fabric of existence itself." Jack's mind spun. A war that had been going on for centuries? What was she talking about? It didn't make sense. But he could see the sincerity in her eyes, the worry etched into her features. She wasn't lying. This was something real, something much bigger than him. "And you're involved in this war?" Jack asked, his voice thick with disbelief. Alina nodded. "In a way. My father has enemies, powerful enemies. He has made deals, alliances, and broken them. We are not just running a business empire, Jack. We are playing a much larger game, and now, because of you, things have changed." Jack's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" "The fact that you saved me," she said, her gaze locking onto his, "and has made you a target. You are tied to my family now, whether you like it or not. And with that, you've become a part of a conflict that spans across worlds. My father's enemies are going to come after you, Jack. You need to understand that." Jack took a step back, his head spinning. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just saved you. What do you want from me?" Alina looked down, her expression softening for a moment. "I didn't want any of this either," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But we don't get to choose our roles in this life. My father has already decided that you will be part of his inner circle, and whether you like it or not, you will be dragged into this war." Jack's chest tightened. He felt like he was suffocating. This was so much bigger than him, so much more dangerous. "What do you expect me to do?" he asked, his voice strained. Alina met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. "Survive. That's the only thing I can ask of you. My father is ruthless. He'll do whatever it takes to protect what he has built, but there are others who want to tear it all down. They'll use you against him, Jack. They'll use your connection to me." Jack didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to process everything Alina had just revealed. He had never wanted any of this. He wasn't a fighter or a politician. He was just a mechanic, a simple worker trying to get by. But now he was in the middle of something he couldn't even begin to understand. "Why are you telling me this?" Jack finally asked, his voice hoarse. Alina took a deep breath. "Because you need to understand the stakes. You need to know that I didn't choose this life any more than you did. But now we are both stuck in it. And if you want to make it out alive, you'll need to trust me. You'll need to be ready for anything." Jack nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. He had no choice but to trust her, even though he didn't fully understand what was happening. All he knew was that he had to survive, and the path ahead was anything but clear. The days felt like they were closing in on Jack, suffocating him with uncertainty. Every moment spent in the spaceport, every glance from Boss Argan's guards, seemed to weigh heavier and heavier. Jack's life had become a chess game, but he wasn't sure who the players were or which moves he should make. He was simply caught in the middle, trying to keep his head down, trying to survive. But that all changed when Alina appeared again, late one night, when the spaceport was quieter than usual. The sound of distant ships moving and the hum of equipment felt like a far-off dream. It was the first time Jack had felt any real peace since that fateful day he'd saved her life. Alina looked different. Her usual calm composure was replaced by something else, something darker. She moved quickly, her eyes scanning the spaceport, alert and tense. The moment she saw Jack, she beckoned for him to follow. "What's going on?" Jack asked, his voice low. Alina glanced around again, ensuring no one was listening. "We need to talk," she said, her voice hushed. "Some things have come to light, things I didn't know, and now I wish I had." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He didn't like the way she was talking, like the ground under them had shifted, and nothing was stable anymore. He followed her without hesitation, instinctively knowing that whatever she was about to tell him would change everything. She led him to a small, isolated room, deep within the spaceport's maintenance section. The hum of machinery was a constant in the background, but it felt distant now. The walls were cold and sterile, with no windows, no distractions, just the two of them, alone. Alina turned to face him, her face tense. "Jack, I need to tell you something. Something I've just found out, and I wish I didn't have to be the one to tell you." Jack's eyes narrowed. "What is it? What are you hiding?" Alina took a deep breath, her expression haunted. "My father, he's been playing a game with all of us, a game I didn't even know about until recently." She paused, her gaze dropping to the floor. "The truth is, Jack, my father didn't just send you here because you saved me. He sent you here because he needed someone like you." Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "What do you mean?" Alina met his eyes, her expression pained. "You were never meant to be a simple mechanic. You were never just a bystander in this war. My father, he saw something in you, a potential that none of us knew existed. You were part of a plan to use you, manipulate you, and turn you into a weapon." Jack stumbled back, as if she had struck him. "A weapon?" he repeated, his voice cracking. "You mean I've been nothing more than a pawn in your father's game?" Alina's face softened with guilt. "I didn't know, Jack. I swear I didn't know. But now I do. I've been investigating things, finding out the truth about the deals my father has made, the secrets he's kept. And the truth is, you were never meant to be saved. You were always going to be used." Jack couldn't breathe. His mind spun, trying to process what she was saying. He had thought that saving her had been an act of heroism, something simple. But now everything felt like a lie. Was he just a tool? A pawn in some dangerous game that he didn't even understand? "I trusted you," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. "And now you're telling me I'm just part of your father's plan? That I've been used from the beginning?" Alina stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "Jack, please understand. My father is ruthless. He manipulates people, bends them to his will. You were never just a mechanic to him. You were a key player in something much bigger, and now you're in too deep. There's no way out of this." Jack's mind raced. He didn't know what to believe anymore. Had everything he'd done been for nothing? Had he risked his life, saved Alina, and ended up right where Boss Argon had planned for him to be? "Why are you telling me this now?" Jack demanded. "Why didn't you tell me earlier when I had the chance to leave?" Alina's eyes were filled with regret. "Because, Jack, I didn't know. I didn't know that you would get pulled into this, that you'd become so important to my father's plans. But now I see it. I see how much danger you're in, and how much danger I'm in too." Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "So what now? What am I supposed to do with all this?" Alina hesitated, her voice trembling slightly. "Now, we have to make a choice. We can try to fight back, expose my father's true plans and destroy everything he's built. Or we can accept the role he's given us and continue playing this dangerous game. But whatever we choose, we need to be careful. The enemies of my father are closing in." Jack clenched his fists. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had no idea how deep this went, how dangerous it could get. Boss Argon wasn't just a powerful businessman, he was a kingpin in a galactic war, and Jack had been dragged into it. whether he wanted to be or not. "I don't want to be part of this anymore," Jack said, his voice firm. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to live my life." Alina looked at him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I know, but we don't have the luxury of choice anymore. My father's game has already started. We either play or we get destroyed." Jack looked at her, his thoughts swirling. He had been forced into this world, but now he had to make a decision. The truth was out. He could no longer pretend to be a simple mechanic. He had to choose a side in this dangerous game. But which side would he choose? Jack didn't sleep much after his conversation with Alina. The weight of the truth she had revealed crushed him, but it also sparked something inside him, something dangerous. He couldn't stay in this world. He couldn't remain a pawn in Boss Argan's game. But what was his choice? Alina had made it clear that leaving wasn't an option. The enemies of her father were closing in, and they would tear apart anyone who got in their way. Jack couldn't trust anyone, not completely. Not even Alina. But he knew one thing for sure. He had to escape. The next few days were a blur of uncertainty and tension. Jack kept his distance from Alina, trying to focus on the practical side of things. He kept his head down, did his work, and avoided the prying eyes of Boss Argan's guards. But the walls felt like they were closing in. Every time Jack passed a security checkpoint, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching him, waiting for him to slip up. The pressure was unbearable. Then, one evening, as Jack sat alone in his quarters, there was a knock at the door. His heart skipped a beat. He wasn't expecting anyone. But when he opened the door, it wasn't a guard. It was Alina. She looked tired, her face drawn with worry. But there was something else in her eyes, a sense of urgency, like she had made a decision. She stepped into the room without waiting for an invitation. "You look like you haven't slept in days," Jack said, his voice rough. "I haven't," she replied, her voice low. "I couldn't stop thinking about what we talked about. We have to act, Jack. We can't wait any longer. The longer we stay here, the more dangerous it becomes. We need to get out." Jack's pulse quickened. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Alina said. "We have to leave. I've been making arrangements, but I need your help." Jack stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "What kind of arrangements?" "I've been in contact with someone who's been watching my father for a long time. They have a ship and they're willing to get us out, off the spaceport, off the planet, but we have to act fast. Once we're gone, we can figure out our next move. But if we stay here, we'll be caught. There's no way around it." Jack felt a rush of adrenaline. "And you trust this person? You trust them enough to risk everything?" Alina nodded. "I don't have a choice, Jack. My father's enemies are everywhere. The longer we wait, the less chance we have of escaping. We have to go now." Jack hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. "If we go, we're on our own. No backup, no protection. You know that, right?" Alina's eyes hardened, with resolve. "I'm ready for that. Are you?" Jack took a deep breath. He couldn't stay. Not in this world of lies, manipulation, and danger. He had been thrust into something that wasn't his fight, and now it was his turn to make a choice. He had already saved Alina once, but this time it was about saving himself, about saving whatever was left of his life. "I'm in," Jack said, his voice firm. "Let's do it." The next few hours passed in a blur. Alina led Jack through a series of secret corridors and hidden passageways deep within the spaceport. The entire spaceport felt like a labyrinth with layers of security and hidden chambers that Jack had never known existed. As they moved through the shadows, Jack couldn't help but wonder how long Alina had been planning this escape. It was clear that she had known things were going south long before he had. Finally, they arrived at a small, unmarked hangar. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a sleek, dark ship. Nothing like the large transports that filled the spaceport. This ship was fast, stealthy, and meant for one thing: escaping unnoticed. We'll be out of here in no time, Alina said, her voice barely a whisper as she climbed aboard. Jack followed her, his mind racing, as they settled into the ship. Alina started up the controls. The hum of the engine was low, almost soothing, but Jack could feel the tension building in the pit of his stomach. They had no time to waste. They had to leave now, or they would be caught. Just as the ship's engines powered up, a voice crackled over the intercom, sending a chill down Jack's spine. "Alina," the voice said, low and menacing. "You didn't think you could run away from your father's empire, did you?" Alina froze, her fingers trembling over the controls. "I knew this would happen," she whispered. "They found us." Jack's heart raced. He turned to look at her, but her face was a mask of determination. "Don't worry, Jack. We've got one shot. If we take off now, we'll make it. But if we wait, if we hesitate for even a second—" "I get it," Jack interrupted, his voice hard. "We go now." Alina punched the ship's engines into full throttle, and the ship lurched forward. They shot out of the hangar, the massive doors sliding closed behind them. The spaceport faded into the distance as the ship raced toward the stars. Jack could feel the ship's speed increasing, the engine's roar filling the air. They were free, at least for now. But as they flew into the unknown, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The game had changed, and he was no longer just a bystander. He was part of something bigger, something that could tear him apart. But one thing was clear. There was no going back now. The escape had begun, and whatever lay ahead, Jack was ready. The stars outside the window streaked by in a blur of light as the small ship cut through the vast emptiness of space. Alina was at the helm, her hands steady on the controls, but Jack could see the tension in her posture. She didn't speak, her gaze locked on the distant galaxy that stretched endlessly before them. They had escaped, yes, but they weren't safe yet. Not by a long shot. Jack sat across from her in silence, his mind racing. He had never imagined his life would turn out like this, running from one of the most powerful men in the galaxy, caught in the middle of a war that wasn't his. And now, as they hurtled through space at breakneck speed, he realized just how far in over his head he really was. "What now?" Jack finally asked, his voice low and guarded. Alina glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Now, we try to stay one step ahead. We can't outrun them forever. Eventually, they'll find us, but until then, we have to make alliances. We need allies, people who can help us, people who want the same thing we do." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Allies? Who the hell are we supposed to trust, Alina? We just ran from your father's empire. We have nothing left." She sighed and leaned back in her chair, clearly frustrated. "I know, but trust me. There are people out there who are willing to fight against my father's rule. People who've been watching him for years, just waiting for the right moment to strike. And that moment is now." Jack wasn't sure if he believed her. The galaxy was vast, and trust didn't come easily, especially when the stakes were so high. "And you think they'll help us?" "Help me?" "I think they'll help us both," she replied firmly. "But we have to prove ourselves first. They won't just hand us anything. We'll have to earn their trust." Just then, the ship's sensors beeped, pulling Jack from his thoughts. Alina quickly glanced at the readout, her eyes narrowing. She tapped a few buttons and the ship's comms came to life. "Alina," a voice crackled over the radio. It was a deep, gravelly voice, one that carried an authority Jack couldn't ignore. "I've been expecting you." Jack's pulse quickened. He didn't know who this was, but the fact that they knew about them so quickly made him nervous. Alina's eyes flickered toward Jack, her expression wary, but she didn't hesitate to answer. "This is Alina," she said. "We're here. We've made it." "Not quite yet," the voice replied. "You've got a little more to prove before you can join us. We've got eyes on you, Alina. And we're not in the business of welcoming anyone who isn't useful." Alina's jaw tightened, but she didn't flinch. "What do you want from us?" she asked, her voice cool but steady. "I want you to prove your loyalty," the voice responded, its tone calculating. Your father's empire is vast, Alina. It controls everything from resources to political influence. You can't just waltz in here and expect help. You have to show that you're worth the risk. Jack felt the weight of the conversation. This wasn't a simple rescue mission anymore. It was a war, a fight for survival. He had no idea who this person on the other end of the line was, but the fact that they had control over their fate made Jack uneasy. Alina looked at Jack, then back at the comms. "We're done running," she said. "We've made our decision. We're willing to fight." There was a long pause on the other end. The silence stretched, and Jack could feel the tension in the air. Finally, the voice spoke again. "Very well," it said, its tone now more measured. "I'll arrange for a meeting. But remember, if you come to us, you'll be marked. There's no turning back. Once you make an alliance with us, you're in it for life." Jack exchanged a glance with Alina. "What does that mean exactly?" he asked, his voice tight. "It means you'll have to do what we say," the voice responded, sounding almost amused. "It means you'll fight. You'll take orders. And you'll prove that you're not just running from your past. You're fighting for something bigger." The comms clicked off, leaving only the hum of the ship's engines filling the silence. Jack sat back in his seat, his mind spinning. He had no idea what kind of people they were dealing with now, but the last thing he wanted was to be a pawn in someone else's game. And yet, as Alina navigated the ship through space, Jack knew one thing. There was no easy way out. They had to keep moving. They had to keep fighting. But the question was, who could they trust in a galaxy filled with enemies, and what price would they have to pay to survive? Alina's voice broke through his thoughts. "Get ready, Jack. We're meeting them soon." "This is it." Jack nodded, his eyes hardening with resolve. He didn't know what kind of fight he was about to step into, but he was ready. Whatever lay ahead, they couldn't afford to lose. The ship had been traveling for hours, its sleek form cutting through the dark expanse of space. The journey had been tense, every moment fraught with uncertainty. Jack sat in silence, staring out the window as distant stars drifted by, feeling the weight of everything that had led him here. The escape, the betrayals, the alliances, they all seemed to blur together in his mind. And yet, despite the chaos, something inside him had shifted. The world he once knew, simple, predictable, felt like a distant memory now. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He wasn't just someone trying to survive in the shadows of a galaxy that didn't care. Now, he was part of something bigger. He could feel the pull of it, the responsibility and the cost. Alina sat beside him, her face calm but etched with the same tension Jack could feel in his own chest. The time for talking was over. Now, it was time to face what came next. "We're almost there," Alina said quietly, her fingers dancing over the controls. Her voice had a steadiness to it, but Jack could sense the anxiety beneath. She wasn't sure what awaited them, but she was determined to see it through. Jack nodded, though his own nerves were starting to surface. "What's next, then?" Alina turned her gaze to him. "We meet them. The people who are willing to stand against my father, against everything he's built. But it's not going to be easy. This isn't a peaceful alliance. There's a price to pay for everything. And I don't know what we'll have to sacrifice." "Sacrifice," Jack repeated, his thoughts racing. They had already given up so much. Freedom, safety, even their old lives. How much more could they give? Before Alina could respond, a voice crackled over the ship's comm system, pulling them both to attention. "We've received your signal," the voice said, calm but unmistakably authoritative. "Prepare to dock. You're expected." Jack's pulse quickened. This was it. The moment where everything either came together or fell apart. He exchanged a glance with Alina, who gave him a slight nod, but her eyes betrayed the anxiety she kept hidden. The ship descended toward a hidden station, floating like a ghost in the emptiness of space. It was a small, unmarked structure, just a blip on the radar of the galaxy's vast network. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like nothing more than a debris field, but Jack could sense the significance of it. This was no ordinary meeting place. This was where alliances were made and where lives were lost. As the ship landed, the hatch opened with a hiss, and a cold rush of air greeted them. They stepped out, their boots clicking on the metal floor of the station. The atmosphere felt different here, sterile, isolated, but with an undercurrent of power that Jack couldn't ignore. He could almost taste it in the air like an electric charge hanging heavy around them. "Welcome," said a voice from the shadows, low and smooth. A figure stepped forward, tall and cloaked in darkness. Jack couldn't make out much of their features, but there was something unnerving about their presence. The figure held up a hand, signaling them to stop. "Before you take another step, you need to understand what you're walking into," the voice continued, sharp and precise. "This is not just about rebellion. It's not just about defeating Boss Argon. This is about shifting the balance of power, and once you step into this, there is no turning back." Jack felt the weight of those words settle deep within him. He had already made his choice, but now the true cost of it was becoming clear. There were no guarantees. There were no promises of safety, of victory. Only the harsh reality of survival. "We understand," Alina said, her voice steady but filled with the gravity of their situation. "We're ready." The figure surveyed them for a moment, then nodded. "Good. But remember this. Your loyalty will be tested, Jack. And you, Alina, are no longer a princess. You are a soldier now. If you want to fight, if you want to survive, you need to prove that you're willing to sacrifice more than you've already given." Jack's stomach tightened. He had known it wouldn't be easy, but he hadn't expected it to feel so suffocating. But Alina was right beside him, and that gave him the strength to push forward. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. The figure turned and began walking down a dimly lit hallway, their footsteps echoing in the quiet. Alina followed without hesitation, and Jack followed her. There was no turning back now. They had come this far, and the only way out was forward. As they entered a large, open chamber, Jack saw the faces of those who had been waiting for them, rebels, outcasts, and warriors from every corner of the galaxy. Some were familiar, some were strangers, but one thing was clear: they all shared a common purpose. "We've been watching your father for a long time," another voice spoke up, this one coming from a woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense attitude. "And we've been waiting for someone like you to make a move. The time for hesitation is over. The war begins now." Jack stood tall, his gaze hardening. He didn't know where this path would take him, but he knew one thing. He wasn't alone anymore, and in a galaxy this vast, that was the only thing that mattered. The future was uncertain, full of shadows and danger. But for the first time in what felt like forever, Jack felt a sense of purpose, of belonging. He had stepped into the unknown, but now he was part of something that could change everything. And whatever lay ahead, he was ready.